La riscato del cañón. Pero su sangre Apache cambiaría su destino para siempre. Diego had always been drawn to the mountains. There was something about the wide-open spaces, the smell of the earth after rain, and the sound of the wind passing through rocks that made him feel alive. As a young man who had grown up in a small town near the outskirts of the desert, he had spent countless hours exploring hills, valleys, and the winding trails that led into the unknown. But today's adventure felt different. Today, he had decided to explore a canyon far beyond the usual paths he had walked. It was said to be dangerous, uncharted by most travelers, and yet that danger pulled at him like a quiet whisper he could not ignore. The morning was clear, with the sun rising slowly over the horizon, painting the rocks with warm shades of orange and gold. Diego's boots crunched over the loose stones as he made his way down a narrow trail, carefully balancing on the uneven surfaces. He carried only a small backpack with essentials: water, a map, some food, and a first aid kit. His heart beat with excitement. Every twist in the trail seemed to promise a new discovery, maybe a hidden pool of water, an unusual rock formation, or the tracks of animals that had passed by recently. He felt free in this solitude, as if the canyon had chosen to share its secrets only with him. As he rounded a sharp bend, a sound broke the quiet. At first he thought it was the wind whistling between the rocks, but then he heard it again, shouting, urgent and desperate. Diego froze. The canyon was usually silent, except for the occasional call of a bird or the distant trickle of a stream. But this was different. Someone was in trouble. Without hesitation, he followed the sound, moving quickly yet cautiously, knowing that in this terrain one wrong step could be dangerous. The cries grew louder, echoing off the steep canyon walls. Diego's pulse quickened. He reached a narrow ledge overlooking a deeper section of the canyon, and his eyes widened. There, clinging to a small outcrop of rock, was a young woman. She looked no older than 20, her long dark hair tangled with dust and leaves. Her arms strained as she gripped the rock, and her legs kicked helplessly, trying to find a secure foothold. Her face was pale with fear, and Diego could see the desperation in her eyes. He realized immediately that if she fell, there would be no one to save her. "Hold on." "I'll help you," Diego shouted, trying to sound calm though his own fear fluttered in his chest. He assessed the situation quickly. The ledge she was clinging to was unstable and reaching her would be tricky, but he could not leave her there. Diego spotted a stronger rock formation just a few feet below and decided to descend carefully, inch by inch. His movements were slow, deliberate, and precise. Every muscle in his body was tense, focused entirely on the task at hand. As he drew closer, the young woman's eyes met his, and in that brief moment, fear mixed with relief. She tried to speak, but her voice broke, and all that came out was a shaky whisper. Diego extended his hand as far as he could. "Take it. Grab my hand," he urged. The wind picked up suddenly, blowing dust and small stones between them. She flinched, but after a tense moment she reached for him. Their hands met, and Diego felt the trembling grip of her fingers. With a powerful pull, he lifted her toward the ledge, urging her to trust him completely. Finally, they reached safety. Diego pulled her onto the stable ground, and both of them collapsed, catching their breath. The woman's chest heaved as she tried to calm herself, and Diego noticed the dirt smudged across her face and the bruises forming on her arms. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, though her lips quivered. I think so." Thank you so much," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Diego offered her water and a small granola bar from his backpack. She took them with shaky hands, her eyes darting nervously around the canyon as if expecting more danger to appear. I was tracking a deer," she finally explained. "I didn't realize how steep it was here. I slipped, and I don't know how I survived." Diego listened attentively. There was courage in her words, even though she had been terrified moments ago. He admired that courage, recognizing that it took strength to survive such a fall. After a while, she began to relax, sitting beside him on the rocky ground. Diego studied her carefully. She moved with a certain confidence despite the ordeal, a skill in her posture that suggested she had spent a lot of time outdoors. Her eyes were sharp and observant, scanning the canyon with a mixture of curiosity and caution. There was something different about her, a depth Diego couldn't quite name yet, something that hinted at a story he had yet to uncover. They decided to move slowly back toward the canyon trail. Diego stayed close to her, guiding her over loose rocks and unstable ground. He noticed how she seemed to instinctively know where to step, how to balance herself, and how to read the terrain. "You're very skilled at this," he said. She smiled faintly. "I've learned from my family," she said quietly, almost as if she were unsure whether to share more. Diego didn't push. Some things were meant to reveal themselves in time. As they walked, the canyon began to open up into a wider valley. The sun climbed higher and the heat of the day began to press down on them. Diego offered more water and she accepted gratefully. They exchanged small talk, learning each other's names, Diego and Nayeli. There was a quiet ease developing between them, a bond formed not by words alone but by the shared experience of facing danger together. Diego felt a strange sense of destiny, as if finding her had not been random but something that the canyon had arranged. By the time they reached a safer part of the canyon, Nayeli stopped to rest, leaning against a large rock. "I owe you my life," she said softly, her voice carrying a weight that Diego felt deeply. He smiled gently. "You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone would do." But even as he said it, he knew this encounter was not ordinary. There was something about her presence, the way she carried herself, that suggested a story much larger than the canyon itself. Nayeli looked at him with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom, and Diego realized that there was more to her than met the eye. Something in her manner, her calmness despite the near-death experience, hinted at a heritage and a strength that went beyond normal understanding. He had no way of knowing it yet, but her ancestry, her Apache blood, carried with it a destiny that would soon begin to influence both their lives in ways he could never have imagined. As the sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the canyon walls, Diego and Nayeli found a small, flat area where they could rest for the night. He started a small, controlled fire, careful to keep it contained. The warmth and the light provided comfort after a day filled with tension. They shared simple food and water, and Diego listened as Nayeli told fragments of her story, about her childhood in the wilderness, her parents passing, and the survival skills she had learned from her family. Each word painted a picture of resilience and courage, and Diego felt both admiration and intrigue growing inside him. That night, as the stars blanketed the sky, Diego and Nayeli sat quietly by the fire. The canyon was silent again, except for the gentle crackle of flames. Diego realized that this was the beginning of something unexpected, a meeting that would change both of their lives. The canyon had been dangerous, unforgiving, and wild, but it had brought them together. And as he watched Nayeli's face illuminated by the firelight, he felt a sense of anticipation, a feeling that their story was only just beginning, and that her Apache blood would play a role in shaping the journey ahead. The morning sun filtered through the canyon walls, casting warm golden light across the rocky terrain. Diego woke first, stretching his tired muscles and taking a deep breath of the crisp, desert air. The events of the previous day, the fall, the rescue, and the tense climb back to safety, still raced through his mind, but he also felt a strange calm, as if surviving the ordeal had unlocked something new inside him. Slowly, he turned to see Nayeli still asleep beside the fire, her dark hair spread across her shoulders. The sight was peaceful, almost surreal, considering the danger she had faced just hours before. As she stirred and opened her eyes, Diego offered a small smile. "Good morning," he said softly. Nayeli returned the gesture, her expression reflecting a mixture of fatigue and quiet determination. There was a strength in her that Diego had noticed immediately, even during the fall, a resilience that seemed almost beyond ordinary. It was as if the canyon itself had tested her and she had passed. After a simple breakfast of dried fruit and bread, they began to walk through the canyon again, this time more cautiously. Diego noticed how naturally Nayeli moved over the rocky paths. Her eyes scanned the environment constantly, noting small details he would have easily missed. Loose stones that could shift, narrow ledges that required precise footing, and even the subtle movements of birds and animals nearby. "You really know your way around here," Diego remarked, impressed. Nayeli smiled faintly. "I grew up learning to live in the wild. My family taught me everything I needed to survive." Diego's curiosity grew. He had always loved the outdoors, but Nayeli's skills went far beyond his own experience. She seemed to understand the land as if it were alive, responding to it with an intuition that surprised him. At one point, a sudden gust of wind sent a small rock tumbling down a cliff nearby. Without hesitation, Nayeli stepped back and caught Diego's arm to pull him out of the way. "Careful," she said softly, her eyes sharp with focus. "The canyon has its own rules. It doesn't forgive mistakes easily." As they continued, Diego realized that there was more to Nayeli than just her skills. She had an aura of quiet confidence and alertness, but there was also something else, something almost mysterious. Occasionally, she would pause and listen to the wind or gaze into the distance, as if seeing or sensing something beyond what was visible. Diego found himself watching her, fascinated and slightly bewildered. He wanted to ask her about it, but he sensed she would only share when she was ready. Around midday, they reached a shaded area near a small stream. The sound of flowing water was soothing after the tense climb of the morning. They sat on rocks near the water, letting their feet dangle and splash gently. Diego offered her more water and Nayeli accepted with gratitude. "You've been very kind," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Most people would have just left me there." Diego shook his head. I don't think I could live with myself if I did. Besides, you're different. There's something about you I can't explain." Nayeli looked at him, her dark eyes thoughtful. "Different how?" she asked. Diego hesitated, unsure how to explain. "I don't know exactly. It's like you belong somewhere beyond this canyon. Like you have a connection to it, to the land that most people don't." Nayeli paused, then looked away toward the canyon walls. "Maybe you're right," she said quietly. "I've always felt that way. The land, it speaks to me sometimes, not in words but in feelings. I think it's because of my family." Diego's interest piqued. "Your family?" he asked. Nayeli nodded, taking a deep breath. "I come from an Apache lineage. My grandmother taught me about the land, how to read the signs in nature, how to survive, and how to respect everything around me. She always said that our blood carries wisdom, a connection to our ancestors and to the earth." Diego listened intently. He had heard of Apache heritage before, of course, but there was something in her voice that made it feel immediate, alive, and deeply meaningful. As they continued walking, Nayeli explained more about her family and upbringing. She spoke of growing up in the wilderness, of learning to track animals, gather edible plants, and navigate without maps. She described rituals her grandmother had taught her, simple ceremonies to honor the sun, the wind, and the water. Diego felt a growing admiration for her. This wasn't just knowledge, it was a way of life, a philosophy that shaped who she was. Diego began to notice small instances of her abilities as they walked. She would stop suddenly, listening to sounds he could barely hear. She would point out tracks of animals he hadn't noticed. At one point, she even predicted a sudden rockslide before it happened, warning him to step aside. "How did you know that was coming?" Diego asked, astonished. Nayeli smiled faintly, as if the answer were obvious. "I just listen," she said. Sometimes the land shows me what might happen. It's in my blood, in the lessons I've learned from my ancestors. Diego found himself thinking about her words long after she spoke them. There was a quiet power in Nayeli that he couldn't ignore. It wasn't just her skill or her bravery. It was the sense that she was connected to something greater, something beyond the immediate world. He realized that this connection explained the calmness she had shown during her fall, the way she seemed to understand the canyon instinctively. Her Apache heritage wasn't just history, it was living in her, shaping her every movement and choice. By late afternoon, they reached a small plateau overlooking a wide part of the canyon. The view was breathtaking. Jagged cliffs stretched into the distance, and the river below sparkled in the sunlight. Diego and Nayeli sat together on a rock, taking in the scenery. Diego felt a sense of awe not only at the landscape but also at the woman beside him. She had survived something unimaginable and had carried herself with strength, grace, and wisdom. He felt lucky and also a little intimidated by her presence. "Diego," Nayeli said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence, "do you ever feel like your life is leading you somewhere? Like there's a path you're supposed to follow?" Diego thought for a moment. "I guess, sometimes, but mostly I just take things one day at a time." "Why?" Nayeli's eyes met his. "Because I feel that way. Lately I've been noticing signs, visions almost of what might come, and I think meeting you here was one of those signs." Diego was taken aback. He didn't know what to say. He could feel the weight of her words, as if they carried truth beyond ordinary coincidence. The evening approached, and the canyon walls began to glow with a warm, amber light. Diego and Nayeli prepared another small camp, this time more organized than the night before. They shared food, water, and stories of their pasts. Diego learned about Nayeli's childhood in the wilderness, the challenges she faced after losing her parents, and the lessons her grandmother had instilled in her. Each story revealed more of her resilience, her intelligence, and the depth of her connection to her heritage. As the stars emerged, Diego realized that he had never met anyone like Nayeli. Her courage and intuition, her knowledge and calmness in the face of danger, and her connection to the land made her extraordinary. But what struck him most was her humility. Despite all she had survived and all she knew, she carried herself with grace and kindness, never boasting or seeking attention. That night, as they lay under the vast canopy of stars, Diego felt a quiet anticipation. The canyon had brought them together, and he sensed that their meeting was only the beginning. Nayeli's heritage, her Apache blood, was not just a part of her past, it was a force that would shape their journey ahead. Diego knew that whatever lay in the future, it would be extraordinary, and he felt honored to be part of it. The canyon, once dangerous and unpredictable, now felt like a place of connection, of destiny, and of discovery. The morning air in the canyon was crisp and full of the scent of wet earth and wild plants. Diego woke to the gentle sound of birds singing from hidden ledges above. He looked around and saw Nayeli already awake, crouched near the edge of the plateau, her eyes scanning the terrain as if reading a map written in the stones and shadows. Diego admired her focus. Even in the quiet of morning, she seemed alert to every sound, every movement, every subtle shift in the wind. It was as if the canyon itself whispered secrets to her, secrets no one else could hear. "Good morning," Diego said softly. Nayeli turned, a faint smile on her face. "Good morning," she replied. "The canyon is different today. There's something in the air, I can feel it." Diego raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Nayeli shrugged. "It's hard to explain. Sometimes the land shows me things before they happen, warnings maybe or signs. I think today we'll need to be careful." Diego nodded, a mixture of curiosity and concern filling him. He had begun to trust her instincts, realizing that her heritage and experiences gave her an awareness he didn't yet fully understand. They began their journey deeper into the canyon, following a narrow path that twisted between steep cliffs. Every step required caution, and Diego found himself moving slower than usual, conscious of the loose rocks and sudden drops. Nayeli led the way, her movements precise and deliberate. Occasionally she paused, crouching to examine tracks in the dust, or listening to the wind before continuing. Diego watched her, learning from her silent observations. After a few hours, they reached a section of the canyon that opened into a small ravine. The walls were jagged and steep, and a thin stream of water trickled at the bottom. Diego noticed small animal tracks crossing the sandy floor, signs of rabbits and foxes. Nayeli stopped and squatted down, pointing to the tracks. "See here," she said softly. "The rabbit went this way, but the fox followed it closely. We'll need to be careful. Predators are near and the terrain could be dangerous." Diego studied the tracks, impressed by her ability to read the land so accurately. They continued, moving cautiously along the edges of the ravine. Suddenly, a loose rock tumbled from above, startling Diego. He stumbled slightly, but Nayeli was quick to grab his arm. "Careful," she whispered urgently. Her reflexes were immediate, and he realized that her instincts were not just knowledge, they were instinctive, almost like an extension of herself. Diego could feel the danger around them, but he also felt safe knowing she was by his side. As they progressed, the canyon began to narrow, forcing them to walk single file. The walls were so close that sunlight barely reached the ground. Diego felt a twinge of anxiety, the shadows making the path ahead seem uncertain. Nayeli noticed his hesitation and slowed her pace, turning to look at him. "Don't worry," she said gently. "Trust your steps and watch the signs. The canyon tests us, but it also guides us if we pay attention." Diego nodded, taking a deep breath and focusing on the path ahead. Her words gave him a strange comfort, a sense that despite the danger, they were not alone in the wilderness. Suddenly, a sharp rumble echoed through the canyon. Small rocks began to shift, and Diego froze. Nayeli's eyes widened, and she grabbed his hand, pulling him against the canyon wall just as a larger rock dislodged from above and tumbled past them. The sound was deafening and dust filled the air. They both crouched low, holding their breath until the rocks settled. Diego's heart pounded in his chest. "How did you know?" he asked, astonished. Nayeli didn't answer immediately. She only nodded toward the canyon walls. "The land speaks if you listen. I felt the vibration in the rocks before the rumble. That's why I moved." Diego marveled at her awareness. This wasn't luck. It was something far deeper, a connection to the land that he could barely comprehend. After the danger passed, they continued more cautiously. Diego's admiration for Nayeli grew. He realized that her knowledge and instincts weren't just skills, they were part of her identity, tied to her Apache heritage. He began to feel that their journey was not only physical, but also a lesson in trust, respect, and understanding the natural world. Nayeli's guidance had become invaluable, and he felt a deepening bond forming between them. As the afternoon approached, they reached a narrow ledge above a steep drop. The path was barely wide enough for one person at a time. Diego's stomach tightened as he stepped forward. Nayeli moved first, her balance perfect, her eyes scanning every foot of the ledge. Diego followed closely, feeling his confidence grow as he mirrored her careful steps. Halfway across, a sudden gust of wind threatened to throw him off balance. Instinctively, Nayeli reached for him, her grip firm and steady. "Trust me," she whispered. Diego did, and together they moved safely to the other side. They stopped to rest on a small, flat rock. Diego sat heavily, catching his breath. "You really do have a gift," he said, still amazed by her abilities. Nayeli smiled faintly. "It's not just a gift, it's my heritage. My ancestors taught me how to listen, how to survive, and how to respect the land. Everything I do comes from that knowledge." Diego nodded slowly. He began to understand that Nayeli's connection to the land was more than instinct. It was a living tradition, a force that shaped her decisions and protected those around her. As they continued walking, the canyon walls began to widen again, revealing a small oasis hidden between the cliffs. A few trees grew near a pool of clear water, their leaves rustling gently in the breeze. Diego and Nayeli approached cautiously, knowing that even beauty could hold hidden dangers in the wild. Nayeli knelt by the water, dipping her hands in and taking a drink. She gestured for Diego to do the same. "Always respect water sources," she said. "They are life here and they hold memories of the land. Treat them well and they will guide you." Diego followed her advice, feeling a strange reverence for the simple act of drinking from the canyon's pool. They rested by the water for a while, sharing stories of their pasts. Diego told Nayeli about his childhood, his love for the mountains, and his desire to explore places few had seen. Nayeli shared more about her family, the lessons of her grandmother, and the rituals that had shaped her understanding of the world. Diego listened intently, feeling a growing respect and admiration. She was more than brave. She was wise beyond her years, shaped by a heritage that had endured generations. As the day wore on, the canyon grew quieter, the shadows lengthening across the rocks. Diego and Nayeli knew they needed to find a safe place to camp before nightfall. Nayeli spotted a small cave tucked into the side of the canyon wall. It was protected from wind and loose rocks, making it an ideal shelter. Together, they gathered wood and prepared a small fire, careful to contain it. The warmth of the flames provided comfort, and the soft light illuminated their faces as they shared more stories and plans for the next day. That night, as they lay under the stars, Diego felt a deep sense of awe. The canyon had tested them, challenged them, and yet it had also brought them closer together. Nayeli's presence had turned a dangerous place into one of discovery, learning, and connection. He realized that her Apache heritage was not just a part of her past, it was a guiding force, a strength that would continue to shape their journey. Diego closed his eyes, thinking about the day's events. The rock slide, the narrow ledges, the hidden oasis, all of it had been a test, and Nayeli had led them through with courage and skill. He felt a quiet anticipation for the days ahead, knowing that the canyon still held many secrets. But he also felt a sense of trust and companionship he had never experienced before. Nayeli's presence was more than reassuring, it was inspiring. As the night deepened, the sounds of the canyon shifted. The wind whispered through the rocks, and distant animals called to each other. Diego realized that they were part of something much larger than themselves. The canyon was alive, and Nayeli, with her heritage and instincts, was its messenger. He drifted into sleep, aware that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and a deeper understanding of the extraordinary young woman beside him. The next morning, the canyon was bathed in soft sunlight that filtered through the cliffs, making the rocks glow in shades of gold and amber. Diego woke to the sound of Nayeli humming softly, a melody that seemed ancient, almost as if it belonged to the canyon itself. He watched her for a moment, noticing how naturally she moved, how the light caught her hair, and how her eyes seemed to reflect the world around her. There was something magnetic about her presence, something that drew him in and made him feel both calm and alert at the same time. "Good morning," Diego said, breaking the quiet. Nayeli smiled, her expression serene. "Good morning," she replied. "I slept well. The canyon has its own rhythm, and I feel safe here." Diego nodded, feeling a deep sense of respect for her. She had faced so many dangers in her life, yet she carried herself with a calm strength that made even the wildest canyon feel less threatening. After a quick breakfast, Diego and Nayeli prepared to continue their journey deeper into the canyon. As they walked, the conversation shifted to more personal matters. Diego was curious about Nayeli's family and her past. He had learned bits and pieces during their travels, but he could sense there was much more to her story. He decided to ask gently, "Nayeli, you mentioned your grandmother and your family before. Can you tell me more about them?" Nayeli paused, looking out over the canyon. She took a deep breath, as if gathering memories from a distant past. "My grandmother was a healer," she began. "She taught me about plants, about the land, and about the spirits that watch over us. She said that our blood carries the wisdom of our ancestors, that we are connected to everything around us, trees, rivers, animals, even the wind. She wanted me to remember that our lives are not separate from the land. We are a part of it, and it is a part of us." Diego listened, fascinated. He had heard of Apache traditions, of course, but hearing Nayeli speak made it real, immediate, and alive. Her words painted a picture of a family rooted deeply in the earth, in nature, and in a way of life that respected every living thing. "That's incredible," Diego said softly. "Your grandmother sounds like an amazing woman." Nayeli smiled faintly. She was everything to me. After my parents passed, she became my guide, my teacher, my family. She taught me how to survive, but also how to listen to the world." As they walked along a narrow ledge, Nayeli explained more about the lessons her grandmother had taught her. She described how to find water in dry areas, how to recognize edible plants, and how to read animal tracks to predict the movement of predators. Diego was amazed at how much knowledge she carried, not just from books or stories, but from lived experience passed down through generations. He realized that every step she took, every decision she made in the canyon, was informed by this deep connection to her heritage. At one point, Nayeli stopped suddenly, crouching down to examine the ground. "Look here," she said. Diego knelt beside her, noticing a series of small tracks in the sand. Nayeli traced them with her finger. "These belong to a mountain lion," she explained. "It passed through recently, and it's still nearby. We need to be careful and move quietly." Diego felt a shiver of apprehension but trusted her completely. Nayeli's instincts had never failed them before, and he knew they would not fail now. As they continued, Diego began to see the canyon through Nayeli's eyes. He noticed the subtle changes in the wind, the movement of the trees, and the way animals reacted to their presence. Nayeli's guidance turned a dangerous path into a manageable journey. He realized that her connection to the land was more than just skill. It was a way of understanding the world that he had never experienced before. She seemed to anticipate dangers before they appeared and find safe routes where none seemed possible. Later in the day, they reached a wider part of the canyon, where the cliffs opened into a plateau filled with wildflowers and tall grasses. The view was breathtaking, with the canyon stretching endlessly into the distance. Diego felt a mix of awe and peace. It was moments like these, he realized, that made the risks worthwhile. Nayeli walked slowly among the flowers, gently touching the petals as if communicating with them. Diego watched, sensing that she felt the presence of her ancestors in this place, guiding her, protecting her, and reminding her of her purpose. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Nayeli finally shared a story that Diego had been waiting to hear. "My grandmother told me about visions," she said quietly. "Not dreams exactly, but glimpses of what might come. She said that our blood, our heritage, carries the power to see things others cannot. I've started having these visions recently. They show me paths, choices, dangers, sometimes people I will meet. You, Diego, I saw you in one of them, though I didn't understand why." Diego's heart skipped a beat. He had felt the pull of destiny, but hearing her say it aloud made it real. Diego searched her face, wanting to understand. "Visions? You mean you could have known we would meet?" Nayeli nodded slowly. "Not exactly. The visions are not always clear. They are like shadows, hints of what might happen, but they guide us if we listen. Meeting you was important. The canyon brought us together, and I feel that our paths are now connected." Diego was silent, letting the weight of her words sink in. He had always believed in fate in a loose sense, but now it felt undeniable. Their meeting was no accident. The evening grew darker, and they prepared a small camp near a sheltered alcove in the rocks. Diego started a fire while Nayeli arranged some stones around it to keep it contained. They shared a simple meal, but the conversation remained deep and reflective. Nayeli spoke of the responsibility that came with her heritage, the duty to protect the land, the people, and the knowledge passed down through generations. Diego felt humbled. He realized that he was not just witnessing her story, he was becoming part of it. After dinner, they sat by the fire, the glow illuminating their faces. Diego asked, "Do you ever feel scared knowing all this is part of your destiny?" Nayeli looked at him, her eyes steady and calm. "Of course," she said. "Fear is natural, but fear does not control me. I have learned to listen, to trust my instincts, and to honor my blood. My grandmother always said that courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act despite it." Diego nodded slowly. Her words resonated deeply. He felt inspired by her bravery, her wisdom, and her unwavering connection to her heritage. As night fell and stars blanketed the sky, the canyon became a quiet, living place. Diego lay on the rocky ground, staring up at the vast expanse above. He thought about the day, about Nayeli, and about the journey ahead. He realized that their adventure was no longer just about exploring the canyon. It was about understanding the deeper truths of life, about heritage, destiny, and the connection between people and the land. Nayeli's Apache blood was more than a lineage. It was a guide, a force that shaped her choices and now, by extension, his own. Diego felt a mixture of anticipation and reverence. The canyon had tested them, taught them, and brought them closer. Nayeli had shared her story, revealing the depth of her heritage, her wisdom, and her strength. But he knew there was more to come, more challenges, more revelations, and more discoveries that would test their courage and their bond. As he drifted into sleep, Diego felt a quiet certainty. Their meeting, their journey, and Nayeli's heritage were all part of something greater than themselves. He did not know exactly what the future held, but he knew that with Nayeli by his side, they would face it together. The canyon was more than a place. It was a teacher, a guide, and a witness to their destiny. And with each passing day, Diego understood more clearly that their lives had been intertwined for a reason, and that the path ahead would reveal the true power of Nayeli's blood and the strength it carried. The morning sun rose over the canyon, painting the rocks with shades of gold and pink. Diego woke feeling a sense of purpose he had never felt before. The previous days had been filled with danger, learning, and discovery. But now, as he looked at Nayeli preparing breakfast, he felt that the journey was reaching a turning point. Nayeli moved with quiet confidence, her every action precise and deliberate. Diego noticed how naturally she seemed at home in this wild, rugged land, and he realized once again how extraordinary she was. "Morning," Diego said softly, trying to mask the excitement in his voice. Nayeli smiled, her eyes reflecting the light of the rising sun. "Morning. Are you ready for what today may bring?" Diego nodded. He didn't know exactly what she meant, but he had learned to trust her instincts. The canyon had taught him that danger and opportunity often came together, and he sensed that today would be no different. After packing their supplies and extinguishing the fire, they began moving through the canyon, following a path that led deeper into the cliffs. Diego noticed that the terrain was becoming even more rugged, the rocks steeper and the paths narrower. Yet Nayeli moved with ease, guiding him step by step. At one point she paused, listening intently to the wind. Diego stopped beside her, unsure what she was sensing. "Something is coming," she said quietly. "Not immediately, but soon. We need to be ready." Diego felt a shiver run down his spine. Her instincts had been right before, and he trusted that they would be right again. As they rounded a bend, they encountered the first real challenge of the day, a narrow ledge overlooking a deep drop, the path partially blocked by fallen rocks. Diego's heart raced. He had faced dangerous terrain before, but this was different. The ledge was unstable, and one wrong move could send him tumbling into the canyon below. Nayeli stepped forward first, her balance perfect, her eyes scanning every inch of the path. "Follow me carefully," she instructed. Diego did as she said, moving slowly, 1 foot at a time. He felt her hand brush against his as she steadied him, and in that moment he realized how much he relied on her guidance and trust. Once they were safely across the ledge, Nayeli led him to a hidden alcove in the canyon wall. The space was small but secure, protected from falling rocks and strong winds. They paused to rest, drinking water and catching their breath. Diego turned to her, admiration and curiosity mixing in his expression. "Nayeli, how do you do it? How do you know what to do when everything is so dangerous?" Nayeli smiled faintly. "It's not just me," she said. "It's my blood, my heritage. My ancestors taught me to listen to the land, to trust my instincts, and to respect the balance of nature. Every step I take is guided by what I've learned from them." Diego nodded, feeling a deep respect for her. He realized that her abilities were not just skill, they were a living legacy, a connection to generations that had walked the land before her. The canyon began to narrow even further, forming a natural corridor between towering cliffs. The air was cooler here, and shadows stretched across the rocky floor. Diego noticed how attentive Nayeli was, scanning the environment constantly. Suddenly she stopped, crouching low and motioning for him to do the same. "We are not alone," she whispered. Diego's heart pounded. Ahead, the shadowy figures of wild animals moved among the rocks. Nayeli observed quietly, identifying the creatures and their patterns. She instructed Diego on how to move silently and avoid disturbing them. Together, they navigated the corridor, their movements synchronized, a dance of trust and awareness. Hours passed as they moved through the canyon, facing small challenges and overcoming obstacles together. Diego began to feel a deep bond with Nayeli, a connection that went beyond friendship. Her courage, wisdom, and intuition had guided them through dangers he never could have faced alone. But he also sensed that their journey was building toward something greater, something that would test them both in ways they had not yet imagined. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the canyon walls, Nayeli led Diego to a hidden plateau overlooking the river below. The view was breathtaking, water sparkling in the fading light, cliffs rising majestically around them, and the vast canyon stretching endlessly into the horizon. Diego felt a mix of awe and relief. This place, remote and untouched, seemed like a sanctuary. Nayeli turned to him, her eyes reflecting determination and calm. "Diego," she said, "this is where we must make a choice. The canyon has shown us its challenges, its beauty, and its lessons. Now we must decide what comes next." Diego looked at her, understanding the gravity of her words. He realized that their journey had not only been about survival, it had been about understanding, trust, and destiny. Nayeli's heritage, her Apache blood, had guided them, and now it was time to embrace the path it had revealed. "I'm ready," he said quietly. Nayeli nodded, a small smile on her face. "Then let us honor the canyon, our journey, and the lessons we have learned." Together they descended to the river below, moving carefully along a hidden path that Nayeli had discovered. The water was cool and clear, reflecting the fading colors of the sky. Nayeli knelt by the river, cupping her hands to drink, and Diego followed. As they paused, Nayeli began to speak about the responsibilities that came with her heritage. She explained that her blood carried not just knowledge, but also a duty to protect the land, to honor her ancestors, and to guide others who would follow. Diego listened intently, realizing that he was part of this journey, part of the responsibility she carried. Night fell, and they set up a small camp near the river, sheltered by rocks and trees. The firelight flickered across their faces as they shared a simple meal. Diego felt a sense of peace he had never experienced before. The canyon had been dangerous and unpredictable, but it had also brought him to Nayeli, to understanding, and to a deeper connection with the world around him. He realized that the trials they had faced together were not just challenges, they were lessons, shaping them for the future. After dinner, they sat quietly by the fire, the stars twinkling above like distant guides. Diego turned to Nayeli. "I never imagined I would meet someone like you," he said softly. "Someone so brave, so wise, and so connected to the world around them. You've changed the way I see everything." Nayeli's expression softened. "And you've shown me that trust and courage are not just about surviving. They are about choosing to face the world together, even when the path is uncertain." The night was calm, but Diego felt the weight of the journey still ahead. Nayeli's visions, her heritage, and the challenges of the canyon had brought them to this moment. Tomorrow, they would continue, facing whatever the canyon held for them. But for now, they rested, connected by shared experiences, trust, and the understanding that their destinies were intertwined. As Diego drifted to sleep, he thought about the canyon, Nayeli, and the lessons they had learned. The land had tested them, guided them, and revealed the strength within them both. Nayeli's Apache blood had shaped the journey, protecting them and showing the path forward. Diego realized that their adventure was not just a story of survival. It was a story of destiny, courage, and the extraordinary bond that forms when two people face the unknown together. When dawn broke, they packed their camp and began the final stretch of their journey through the canyon. The terrain was less treacherous now, but still challenging, demanding full attention and careful navigation. Nayeli led the way, her instincts guiding each step. Diego followed closely, confident in her guidance, yet aware of the lessons he had learned about observation, patience, and respect for the land. At last, they emerged from the canyon into open plains, the horizon stretching endlessly before them. Diego felt a rush of relief and triumph. The canyon had tested their courage, resilience, and trust, but it had also brought clarity. Nayeli turned to him, her eyes shining with determination and hope. "We made it," she said softly, "and this is only the beginning. Our paths are now connected, and we will face the future together." Diego smiled, feeling a sense of completion and anticipation. The canyon had been a teacher, a challenge, and a witness to their journey. Nayeli's heritage had been the guiding force, her strength and wisdom illuminating the path. Together, they had discovered courage, trust, and a bond that would last far beyond the canyon walls. As they walked toward the horizon, Diego knew that their lives had been forever changed. The canyon, Nayeli's blood, and the experiences they had shared had shaped their destinies. They had survived, learned, and grown together. And now, with the open world ahead, they were ready to face whatever adventures awaited, bound by courage, heritage, and a connection that could never be broken.